I'm Jerry Craig with the Vet Voice. On behalf of Veterans for Trump, we're excited to announce our endorsement of Dan Frei, who's seeking a seat in U.S. Congress to represent Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District. So, Dan, talk to our audience about what motivated you to get into politics and what brings you to this race.
Well, Jared, I appreciate the opportunity. This isn't our first rodeo. I ran 10 years ago, and at that point in time, the inspiration to get into that race was that we were watching the expansion of the federal government into our personal and private lives at a rapid pace. The government we were still feeling the after effects of bailing out the auto industries, bailing out the banking system. We had just taken over the healthcare system. We were trying to figure out what that was going to look like. Were we going to repeal and replace it? Were we going to try to modify it? What was going to happen? Was it going to be affordable? But more importantly, we had tens of thousands of individuals crossing our borders, and we had no idea who they were. Nothing was being done to stop it. Tens of thousands. Now, we were also $17 trillion in debt. So, Jared, if you look at where we were at then, and I thought it was worthy to sound the alarm, if you look at where we're at now, everything is remarkably worse. So we now have, on top of everything else, a moral decline in this culture because of the diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that are being shoved down the throats of our kids and our it's in the schools, it's in the workplaces, it's in the military. But now we've got a wide open border invasion. We've gone from tens of thousands to literally millions of people in this country. We have no idea who they are, where they're at, and what their intentions are. And the federal government is doing nothing to stop it. Our representatives on either side of the aisle have done nothing to stop it. So, we have politicians here in Nebraska that run every cycle on being tough on the border, being strong on the border, securing the border. And here we are decades later, or a decade later, and it's remarkably worse than it ever has been. And now we're almost $35 trillion in debt. What we're doing right now is we're taking on another $1 trillion of debt every 100 days. This is absolutely unsustainable. It's a catastrophe waiting to happen. And I said 10 years ago I was doing this for my kids and my grandkids because I was concerned about what we were going to leave behind for them. Well, I had two grandkids and one on the way back then. I now have 10. So if it was right to do it 10 years ago, it's certainly right to do it now because every one of those metrics that I just spoke about is an absolute disaster. So that's what's been the motivation to this race is to send individuals to DC that will actually deliver on what they campaign on.
Well, I had the pleasure of actually looking into your website and I saw your large family. So
Yes.
lots of reasons to preserve this country. I've been to the border. I've actually been there as recent as November of last year. We were filming a documentary on the border invasion, and I've seen it firsthand. One thing that most candidates are realizing is that every state is a border state, and it's also touching on the local economies. It's harming our children's resources for education. We're getting higher crime rates. We're having all kinds of problems as a direct result of this border invasion. And uh, all these issues are tied together. So the America First agenda is broad and all encompassing from regulatory reform to the economy. And you're right, we need to send people to DC who are not only capable, but willing to do the job to
Right.
serve this country. Now, what is your platform? Some of the highlights of your platform or your priorities are the first thing that you're going to get started once you get to DC.
Let me be perfectly clear. My platform or my priorities, they've not been set necessarily exclusively by me. They've been set by my constituents. They've been set by the people in my district that are saying, Dan, our politicians have failed us. Here is what our biggest issues are. And I will tell you right now, 95% of everybody I speak to, the very first issue they bring up is secure the border. We've got to secure the border. And you are correct. We are the global superpower, but we've got the border of a third world country. And that's putting at risk. To say that every state is now a border state is an understatement. Every citizen in this country is at greater risk today than they were several years back when that border was not as bad as it is now. So the border is the number one priority. And I'm not one of these individuals that's going to buy this theory that we can't afford to do it. If we would stop shipping hundreds of billions of dollars to foreign wars into countries that we have no vested interest in or belong in, we would have that border secured tomorrow. It's absolutely unacceptable to have our politicians dumping the treasury of this country into Ukraine while our border is wide open and our citizens are at great risk. That's the number one priority. Number two is going to be get spending under control. We are nearly $35 trillion in debt. We're flat out broke. So not only should we not be shipping this money to other countries, we don't have it to ship. We don't have that money to throw out there for whatever reasons we're doing it. So it's the border, securing the border, and getting spending under control. Those are the two top priorities, and that's what's being fed back to me from my constituents.
Well, I think that the Democratic Party and some of the uniparty Republicans, they have the concept of just throw money at it. And I think that's a concept that comes from lifelong tenures in public service, where they have no concept of where money comes from and no sense of limited money resources. Also with budget spending, if you don't spend all your budget, you're not going to get enough next year.
Right.
So you're hitting the nail on the head with a limited resource that we're misapplying. And who are we owing that money to? There's a national security risk at every angle of our conversation, from the border to the national security of our wealth. But one thing that 10 years ago, it was probably a lot more migrant workers or families from Mexico and bordering countries that were coming in. And now we're seeing people coming in from countries that have no connection to South America, Central America, or Mexico.
None whatsoever. And Jared, it's a sad day in this country when we are now spending more money to house, feed, clothe, and provide medical care people that are in this country illegally than what we're spending on our own citizens
Right.
that need help and support and assistance. And that's got to stop. And there's a big difference. I think we've got a lot of people in DC. We've got a lot of politicians that want to go and be a part of a club. They would like to think that they've got influence or at least access to influence, and they want to make a good income, but they don't want to accept any accountability. And what I would tell you is this is going to be a change election. The congressman that I'm running against has been there 8 years. Every term he runs on the same issues. He's going to secure the border. He's going to cut the debt, cut the deficit, and cut the spending. Has failed every time. And the individuals of this district are stepping up and saying it's time to hold them accountable. And that's what we've got to have more of in DC. Send individuals that aren't looking for a career there. They're not looking for a lifetime. They're not looking for a lifestyle. They're looking to do the job that has been promised to them on the campaign trail, but has never been delivered. Those are the individuals we need in DC. So I'm telling you, this is teeing up to be a change election. The American people are upset right now.
Well, one thing that I've been speaking to young voters that are seemingly on the fence with a liberal perspective that they're questioning now. And I bring it to light and I say that there must be a core country to rebel against. We don't have the luxury to support liberalism. If our country is eroded and destroyed, the liberals have no place because this freedom of speech that they operate is not welcomed in socialist countries. Wait until you have no speech and no freedoms. Be careful what you ask for type of thinking. So Dan, I think that we're making a wise decision in endorsing you. You're clearly an America First candidate, looking out for the longevity of our constitutional republic. It's refreshing to hear that you're not only aware of what needs to be done, but willing to go to DC and fetter out those swamp creatures, lack of a better phrase. So if people wanted to go on and find out more about you and your race, where would they go?
We greatly appreciate that. And I would encourage you to go jump on board, hop on our website. It's Frie, the number 4, Nebraska.com. Now, let me spell that out for you because we spelled my last name wrong. It's FREI, the number 4, Nebraska.com. you can jump on that website. If you happen to be here in District 2, you can volunteer, you can walk neighborhoods, you can make phone calls, you can do any number of things. Certainly, you can come alongside there and donate to the campaign. That helps us get our message out. But more than anything, May 14th is our election, and we would appreciate your vote. If you're in District 2, vote, bring your friends, bring your family, bring your colleagues, get the message out that there's opportunity to take this country back on May 14th.
And get to the polls and get out your vote, because your vote matters. Your vote matters at the primaries and at the general election. So I want to call to action for all District 2 in Nebraska to fill up their cars. Every safety belt must be clicked, and get them out to vote. So thank you for coming on. We look forward to seeing you in DC, and I hope to have a recap after November to celebrate. So thank you very
Jared,
much, and we're definitely behind you.
greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Take care.